Mastodon, Hushed and Grim album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. Here to chat about this latest from Mastodon, Atlanta-based sludge metal, progressive metal act. They've been at it for years now, and in their early days, this may come as a shock to a lot of you. They were just such a huge part of me getting into any kind of metal. I mean, yeah, in high school I was kind of into like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, but it was Mastodon that really brought me up to speed with the modern metal sounds, the heavier sounds of what was going on around me. Between the crushing Remission, the very sludgy, slightly progressive masterpiece Leviathan, and my all-time favorite Mastodon product, the incredibly catchy and insanely memorable Blood Mountain, these were projects that made me appreciate modern metal. Now, it has not been all smooth sailing, especially since then. For me, ever since my relationship with Mastodon has been rocky, to say the least. I've been known to be hypercritical of their very progressive Crack the Sky album. I don't know. I don't think it's nearly as forward-thinking or as progressive as a lot of people think. I mean, The Hunter saw them strip down their sound to its barest essentials, and I thought it had some pretty good singles. I mean, Stargasm is fun, but some of the deep cuts on this album really showed off just how flimsy Mastodon was becoming. And I mean, Once More Around the Sun, I don't think it's that bad. I actually think that it doesn't get as enough credit as it should. Some of the singles on it are still fantastic, but still, like, compared to just how much the band excited me in their early days and how much I gravitated towards their very crushing, pummeling sound, it's just been tough for me ever since. And let's not even talk about Emperor of Sand. I literally listened to this album last week just to refresh myself. I thought I was listening to a Foo Fighters record. Now, I will say this. They did catch me off guard with that Cold Dead Place EP they put out a few years ago. This, to me, was an interesting, fresh take on their sound. While it wasn't exactly what I was expecting, I kind of wanted to hear more of it. So it's not like I'm incapable of enjoying a modern Mastodon work. But then I see this album coming towards me head first, and it is a double album. It is an hour and 25 minutes, and that was daunting. Let's chat about it. This album starts off with Pain with an Anchor, and honestly, I wasn't that into it at first, but it's grown on me. It's got some teeth to it for sure. I mean, let's be clear, I would take this track over anything on Emperor of Sand any day. It's hazy, it's got your elements of progressive metal and sludge metal. And not for nothing, it's genuinely, forward-thinking all around. And that's not something that I can always say for Mastodon these days. This just sounds like it fits the bill all around, especially playing-wise. Like, everybody in Mastodon just sounds like they're on top form on this track. I love this. It's not like this album doesn't have plenty of good ideas. Trust me, it does. Like, take for example the Crux. I think this is one of the best tracks here. This is a crushing, sludgy track that reminded me just what I appreciated about Mastodon to begin with. Not only that, man, but this is gnarly. This is heavy. Like, it is just melodic enough to stick with you when it's over. I feel like Mastodon since Blood Mountain have really actually done that pretty well. The solos here, they're solid all around. I'm for this 100%. Not only that, but I feel like the psychedelic portion that we get in the later moments is actually pretty awesome. I really love Skeleton of Splendor as well. This is one of the grimmest and darkest tracks here, and honestly, from a vocal standpoint, it's also oddly emotional and human, which is something I did not expect. And I'll say this, from a songwriting stance, maybe not one of my favorite tracks here. From a performance stance, though, this is a knockout in my book. This is what I come to a Mastodon album for. Not only that, but in the closing moments, it gets genuinely bizarre. Teardrinker, once again, this track really brings me back. This doesn't even sound like a modern Mastodon track. This sounds like a throwback. This sounds like an unearthed gem. It is gnarly. Instrumental-wise, this is one of my favorite performances here. And listen, we're going to get to it, but there's some straight garbage on this album. Some real misguided trash. When Mastodon are on the same page, and they are focused, which they are on this track, the finished product is incredible. It is emotional. It is well performed. It is awesome. And I may be in the minority here, but I think the synths are pretty cool. Pushing the tides as far as a heavy track goes, once again, this is a raucous rocker. There are tracks on here that are some of Mastodon's heaviest in a while. And let me tell you, in a sea of tracks that are well over 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and even over 8 minutes here, this 3-minute track is just what the doctor ordered. It is explosive, it is raw, and I think as far as an exciting tune goes, look no further. Ironically, I think that if they kind of just capped it at disc 1, we would be talking about a completely different album. I think I would love this. Savage Lands also, once again, this is exactly what happened when Mastodon focuses. This track is really great. It is raw and once again, genuinely really heavy. It's probably the most Mastodon sounding thing here. But it's also just really well written. This is catchy enough to be a single. And Eyes of Serpents has some of the best ideas on this whole album. I love the cinematic vibe to this entire album. The very emotional pianos are a really nice touch as well. I mean, as far as a progressive track goes, this is genuinely forward thinking. It's surprisingly really epic and just a reminder of what Mastodon can still offer to these genres. But alas, this album is an hour and 26 minutes, and a lot of material I feel like just did not need to be here. Like, I wish I had an excuse for Sickle in Peace. It's tracks like this that I just don't have any excuse for. I wish I did, but there's so much going on this track, and so little of it has any edge to it. Outside of that crunchy riff that comes around for the chorus, that is. On top of that, it is plus 6 minutes, and it is ridiculously overdramatic. The Beast is just, it's not for me. Not feeling this one at all. I actually kind of got excited when I heard that southern twang of this intro. But what follows is just so freaking average. I mean, I do appreciate the atmosphere on this track, and I do appreciate the sort of psychedelic vibes. I actually think as far as the vocal performance from Brent Hinds goes, this is his best here. It's very southern, very bluesy. But the rest of this track just reminds me of why I'm just so sick of modern progressive metal. Peace and Tranquility is just a big nope from me. This is just very sloppy. There is not a cohesive thought in sight. Even the vocals on this track are some of the most inoffensive here. And had it all, this is genuinely like getting my teeth pulled. Listen, even at some of this album's lesser moments, I found, little things that I've enjoyed. Whether it be some of the atmosphere, some of the vocal performances, even some of the solos. But had it all, it's just really, really hard to swallow. This is a melodramatic, plus 5-minute progressive metal ballad. Oof. Yes, some of the playing in the second half isn't that bad. But I think it's too little too late in my least favorite track here. And the rest of this album, while maybe not bad, it just doesn't really sway me either way. It just makes me shrug. More Than I Can Chew probably isn't the worst sin committed here. But so much of this track just sounds like it's overcompensating. For every good idea on this track, there's an idea that falls flat. For every instrumental that pops in, I nod and say, okay, yeah, there are probably 2 instrumentals that I feel like didn't need to be there. It's not bad, but when it doesn't move me or excite me, and it goes on for over 7 minutes, I'm just not here for it. Dagger is very aggravating. It's just so middle of the road. The first few minutes of this are just so uninteresting, unoffensive, and most importantly, not progressive. Once again, what's really frustrating is it's not void of everything. Like the drumming on this track alone, like Brad Taylor's drumming on this track is ridiculous. And when we get to the second half of this track, Mastodon bring in some genuinely new inspirations from other genres that are actually really fascinating to hear. But the first half is just so hard to sit through, I don't think it's worth it. And while not necessarily bad, Gobblers of Dregs sounds like 7 other tracks here. Like this dreary, slow, brooding track is just so overdone by now. An hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is into this album. It just sounds like so much other material here. Not only that, it's almost 9 minutes. I mean, truthfully, yes, some of the later instrumentals have some bite to them, but is it really worth sitting through 6 minutes of what you could have heard half of an album ago? I don't think so. And Gigantium as a finale, I have literally like one note wrote on my little sheet here, and that's just a shrug. Just too glossy. It's too clean for me. And yes, I love the fact that this album, watch that. And yes, this track has this big wall of sound to it, which I commend. And something really interesting happens in the second half of it. That is the fact that we're getting inspirations from practically post-rock. This sounds like, I don't know, some old Godspeed You Black Emperor in the second half of this track. I mean, once again, Mastodon eventually do get their shit together. I wish they did it from the word go, though. It's just not what I wanted to hear, especially after an album that is an hour and 26 minutes long. I mean, Jesus Christ, Donda had more cohesive thoughts than this. So you know what? This album's really hard for me to put my finger on. There's a lot of great material on here. There's a lot of progressive thoughts and a lot of really gnarly riffs, too. As a matter of fact, when this is good, it's probably some of Mastodon's better work in quite some time. What really bugs me, though, is this album's length. I don't know. I certainly did not need a double album right now that is an hour and 26 minutes long. Clearly, I think there's enough good material here for one disc. If they just chopped it up, spit some of it out, I think, honestly, they would have come up with a more cohesive product. Because when this album is bad, and it is bad at points, it is downright some of the worst metal I've heard all year. And like 8-minute tracks, 9-minute tracks, no thank you. This is a rough one for me. It's tough, but I'm feeling a light 6 on this album. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.